The sensor board went dead, then it went silent. Proctor Vrax stared at the blinking red terminal as the system logged a catastrophic error code. Subject status: null. In the heart of the sub-level 9 pressure dome, the gravity wells hummed with enough force to crush a tank. But the sensors could not find a heartbeat, a spike in cortisol, or a single thermal signature. To the diagnostic computer, the human girl inside the vacuum chamber had simply ceased to exist. Vrax slammed his fist onto the console. "Restart the external ping," he barked, his mandibles clattering. His assistant, a twitchy crev with too many eyes and not enough resolve, fluttered his arms. "Proctor, the chamber is at 0.01 atmosphere. Any biological entity should be a red smear on the bulkhead." "The system is lagging." "No," Vrax whispered. "It is not lagging, it is confused." 12 minutes earlier, the mood in the control room had been clinical. 31 elite cadets, the pride of the Krev and silly warrior castes, had marched into the vacuum trial. At the end of the line was Alina, the human. She was small, soft, and currently fumbling with a foil-wrapped stimulant wafer she had produced from a pocket in her jumpsuit. "Survival rate for this sector is 3%, the assistant had reported, his skin turning a nervous shade of pale gray. "The human is a liability. If the seal ruptures, we lose her in half a second." Vrax had clicked his mandibles in agreement. He had set the timer for the absolute limit of biological endurance, 12 minutes. Humans were supposed to be Deathworlders, but Alina looked like she had wandered in from a lecture hall. As the main gate slammed shut, the Krev cadets had immediately scrambled for the high-pressure oxygen zones. Alina had stood near the center bulkhead, slowly chewing her wafer. How did this creature remain so profoundly disconnected from the lethal nature of her environment? Vrax watched the monitors with growing irritation. The computer, sensing the uneven distribution of stress, ramped the simulation to maximum intensity. A hull breach alarm shrieked. Air began to vent in violent sonic boom bursts. The temperature plummeted to 40 degrees below zero. The Krev were curled into protective balls. The Silly were flickering a desperate, panicked violet. Alina didn't even look up at the venting pipe. She simply tightened her ponytail with a worn hair tie and leaned her head against the shivering bulkhead. She closed her eyes. "She is in shock," the assistant whispered, his skin now a sickly shade of ash. "Her body has shut down to preserve energy." "Observe," Vrax commanded. He zoomed the camera. Alina's hand moved, not in a panic, but to brush a speck of dust off her sleeve. Her breathing was steady, rhythmic, the baseline of a species that had evolved in a gravity well so deep, and a climate so unstable that this vacuum was, to her, merely a mildly uncomfortable hallway. Crunch, she took another bite of the stimulant wafer. Suddenly, the monitors failed. The main computer flashed the null error code. The girl had dropped her biometrics so low that the system assumed she was a piece of inanimate furniture. She was napping, while the vacuum hissed, while 31 elite soldiers broke their bones trying to reach the oxygen injectors. Vrax leaned into the microphone. "Increase the shearing gravity. I want a response." The chamber roared. The gravity fluctuated, tossing the panicked cadets like ragdolls. Alina drifted off the floor, still holding her half-eaten wafer, hovering in the zero-G like a discarded, peaceful feather. She didn't struggle. She didn't scream. She simply adjusted her posture in the air, a small smile playing on her lips, and continued her nap. "She is not resisting the pressure," Vrax whispered, his plates locking into place. "She is ignoring it." No signal, no life. No reason. The Krev assistant scrambled to override the gravity controls, his hands trembling. "Proctor, the cadets are losing consciousness. We have to abort." Vrax watched the screen. Alina was now drifting toward the ceiling, her eyes still closed, her posture relaxed. It was an insult to the entire discipline of military survival. He wanted to scream. He wanted to force her to show fear, to show the biological strain that defined all other sentient life in the galaxy. But there was nothing. No heart rate, no stress, no life. "Manual abort," Vrax said, his voice flat. The doors hissed open. The cadets tumbled out, wheezing, broken, and terrified. Elena floated toward the exit, stepped onto the deck and blinked, looking slightly annoyed at being woken up. "Sorry," she said, her voice small and cheerful. "Was I supposed to do something else? This place is actually really quiet, great for a nap." Vrax stared at her. She brushed a stray hair from her forehead and walked past the broken Krev soldiers as if she had just finished a lunch break. She didn't look at the monitors. She didn't look at the damage to the chamber. She didn't look at Vrax. He turned back to the console. The data was there, laid out in cold, hard numbers. 0% stress detected. 0% elevated heart rate. A perfect performance in an environment that killed gods. He saved the file and wiped the public server. The Academy could not know that their most rigorous training trial had been defeated by a teenager taking a nap. The next morning, Vrax stood before the High Command Board. He held a plastic, foil-wrapped wrapper, the only evidence of the humans' passage through the trial. He placed it on the velvet pedestal in the center of the room. The board members leaned in, their long, metallic fingers clicking against the glass, waiting for a report on the cadets. "We need to rewrite the doctrine," Vrax told them, his voice rattling with a newfound, cold dread. The board looked at him, confused. One of the elders gestured toward the screen, expecting to see a report on the silly cadets. "We don't need to teach them to survive," Vrax said, pointing to the empty wrapper. "We need to teach them how to stay awake. Because when a human sleeps, the universe itself forgets to kill them." The elders stared at the piece of plastic on the pedestal. The room was silent. Vrax stood still, his plates locked, waiting for them to understand that the math of death had just been rendered obsolete by a girl with a half-eaten lunch. He didn't say anything else. He didn't have to. The truth was there, plain and simple, resting in the center of the room like a ticking bomb. The elder in the middle finally reached out. He touched the foil wrapper, his talons clicking against the thin material. He looked up at Vrax, his eyes wide, reflecting the dark emptiness of the void they had spent 1,000 years trying to conquer. The board members did not move. They did not speak. They simply stared at the empty wrapper, waiting for an explanation that would never come.